Howdy folks, welcome to the show. This is just one more Oilers review down in southern Alberta for now, and one more Oilers review of a loss. It's the third straight loss, I believe. I'll talk about that at the end. Let's start with the game that happened. I have my notes down here on my phone. First, 2 minutes in, Oilers turn it over, and Kadri scores for Calgary to make it 1-0. He's assisted by Dewar and Hanifin. 7 minutes later, Edmonton turns it over again, and it's Pospisil, or as I like to call him, Pot Piss Missile. He's assisted by, I don't know if it's Pashao or Pakao, and Zari. And then 7 minutes later, almost, it's Hanifin scoring his own goals, 10th goal of the year for him, so his trade value is going quite high. He's assisted by Huberdeau and Backlund. That was, I don't know if I mentioned, that was also off an Oilers turnover. There is a theme for this game, and it unfortunately continues. But before it continues, Edmonton gets back into the game. Edmonton scores a power play goal with under 2 minutes left in the first to get the crowd back in it before first intermission. Is Hyman. He's 36th of the year, and he's assisted by Evan Bouchard and Connor McDavid. Second period, Hyman's back at it again. He scores his second of the game, his 37th of the year. He's assisted by Draisaitl and McDavid. Earlier in the first period, Blake Coleman had a good hit on McDavid. It was a good, clean hit, so it didn't really necessitate a fight. But the way the Oilers play is, you touch our guy, we're going to touch you just as much. Anyways, the Oilers start getting under Coleman's skin. It eventually leads to a 4-on-4 with Coleman and Janmark going off into the box. Once the 4-on-4 is done, as soon as they come out, they fight. And there was quite a few scrums in the first, so you knew a fight was coming. I was just kind of thinking, who's it going to be who fights for us first if there's multiple fights? Is it going to be Nurse? It's going to be Perry, Kane, Holloway? Janmark. Good for him, but he probably can't fight too well. Oh, he could fight very well. He lands a lot of hits on Coleman. It was more quantity over quality, but there were still lots of hits, lots of punches on Coleman. Coleman got a few in as well, and there was some good ones that struck too. Who knew he had hands? I mean, I'm sure he can fight. He's a hockey player, but I just didn't think he had that kind of fighting skill in him, and it was good on him. And it's not the last you'll hear of his name, or the last Calgary will hear of his name. So it felt like after those two straight goals and a fight, Edmonton was back in it. And I like to talk with my Calgary friends during the game, and they knew it. They're like, "Oh, great, here we go again." I was telling them about how the Oilers are a third period team and all that, and the Oilers are right back in it. We're not even halfway through the second period. But halfway through the second period, Huberdeau has a nice pass to Drayden Hunt, who scores his first goal of the year. It's a decent goal, and that was assisted by Oliver Shillington. And guess how that play started? You're right, an Oilers turnover. And then not even 3 minutes later, Calgary's on the power play. This wasn't their first time on the power play. They suck on the power play. Talent kill was okay, but it looked really good because the other team is Calgary, who sucks on the power play, because Calgary can only set up offense off of a turnover, so that's why they suck on the power play. But Edmonton decided to help them on an attempted clear. It turns into a turnover, and Calgary scores again on a turnover, and it's Hanifin, his second of the game, 11th of the season. He's assisted by Connor Zary and Rasmus Anderson. And then there isn't too much note in the third period, except that Chris Knobloch thought it'd be a really genius idea to pull the goalie with 7.5 minutes left in the game. It's one of those decisions where if it works, you're a genius. If it doesn't, you're an idiot. And it didn't work, he's an idiot. He's not actually an idiot, but that's just how it comes off. Because the idea was, we'll put McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, or I think it was McDavid, Hyman, and Nuge out, with Bouchard and Ekholm. And when those five are out, the Oilers control well over 60% of the shots. They're able to control the game. So all it needed, the idea I think was for the Oilers to win a face-off, and it becomes a 6-on-5, and then you can put Skinner back in the net after the next face-off, because it's more likely for there to be a face-off than for Calgary to get the puck, or to get the puck out of their zone. The problem is Calgary doesn't need to get to our zone to shoot the puck on an empty net. I put my phone away, so I put my notes away. So Blake Coleman, who had a fight earlier, he's able to shoot at the length of the ice, and it's his 23rd of the season. He's had an incredible season. He's assisted by Mangiapane. And so the goal in the second period that made it 5-2 from Hannon did feel like kind of the killer, but if there was any hope of comeback, it was kind of killed with that play. And so I do disagree with pulling the goalie with 7.5 minutes left. Obviously, if it works, it works, but it didn't. I think maybe he was trying to start a spark. I get where his line of thought was, not what the line of thought was with that play. I just disagreed with it, and it didn't work out. And but Coleman wasn't the only guy who had a fight and a goal, because when we were just kind of playing the rest of the game for the sake of playing the rest of the game, Janmark gets his 4th of the year. He scores with 4 minutes left, and he's assisted by Ekholm. He had a good play. I believe Ekholm caused a turnover, or I don't know, it doesn't really matter. It does matter a little bit, but at the end of the day, Oilers scored, and at the end of the day, the Oilers lost 6-3. Naturally, there's going to be some form of disappointment and anger when you lose, and there's going to be some form of disappointment and some form of additional disappointment and anger when you lose to a division rival, and even more form of disappointment and anger when you lose to a provincial rival. I maintain that Edmonton Calgary is, obviously I'm going to be biased, but I believe it's the best rivalry in sports. I don't know, maybe I was going to make a joke, but I'm too tired, and it's just going to turn to us. I could make a joke about Toronto in the first round or something, but no, I still think the Battle of Alberta is still a better rivalry than that, especially since Toronto got their first win over the first round. And it's not really a rivalry when the one side keeps winning, and the first round keeps winning over Toronto, except for last year. Good on them. So that's not really a rivalry. Anyways, not focused on Toronto slander. We're focused on the Edmonton Oilers losing 3 straight. So let's focus on this loss before I get to the overall picture. Shots were mostly even, 35-31. Calgary led in the first period 12-8, and in terms of shots and goals. And the Oilers led the second and third period in shots, 13-10 in the second, 14-9 in the third. Face-offs were dead even, 32 apiece. Power plays, they both realistically went 1 for 3. There was a bit of a penalty at the end of the third period, so Calgary eventually went 1 for 4, which helped our penalty kill numbers. What happened is Nurse laid a big hit on Kadri. Kadri was, kind of mouthing off and angry at it, which is fine. I'm not going to get mad at him for being mad that he got hit. But what he does is he holds Nurse's stick, and he's being a bit of a douche, and eventually it draws a penalty. And my opinion is, in those kind of situations, you either fight or shut up. And he didn't do either. And when you don't do either, I consider that douchey and disrespectful. Now, Kadri still had a good game. He still had a goal, and still won, and all that kind of stuff. That's the bottom line. But just on a note of honor and system and kind of stuff, it's, I'm not saying Kadri had to fight, but fighting is a lot more honorable than being a douche and trying to get a power play when you're already up 3 goals. So I think what should have happened is it should have been on 4-on-4. I think Kadri should have gone off for holding the stick as well, but I'm not really angry because it made our penalty kill numbers look better. So whatever. Again, bottom line, Calgary won the game 6-3. The other thing I wanted to note on is the fact that all of Calgary's goals were off of turnovers. I don't think it was Oilers being careless like they were earlier in the season. I think they were forced, and so Calgary deserves credit for that. That's the way they play. Edmonton is a pass first team, and Calgary is a pass prevention first team. I think that's why in the 3 games that's been played, that so far, that none of them were blowouts, but none of them were really close because there isn't a lot of crossover between the way the two teams play, except maybe physicality. They can both be pretty physical, which was evident. There was a lot of penalty minutes and a lot of hits. Hits were 30-27 in favor of Calgary. So very physical game. And again, there's a baseline of anger and disappointment when you lose to a team, to a division rival, and a provincial rival. But the fact is, you play Calgary 4 times a year. Calgary's not a bad team, and you never know what happens with the Battle of Alberta. Janmark might fight, which happened, and he fought very well. And that's why I love the rivalry. That's why I think it's the best. Is you really don't know what you're getting into between these two teams, who also have a very near opposite way of playing. So again, when you play that team 4 times, you're bound to lose one. Oilers currently lead the series 2-1. There's still one more game left between the two. So I really am not that angry, besides the base amount of anger that you get from losing to a provincial rival and all that. So let me touch on the 3 stars, and then I'm going to talk about the Oilers and their losing streak and losing in this game. Hyman was the first star. Obviously, he had 2 goals. Janmark was the second star. He had a goal and a fight, a very good fight. And third star was Ekholm, who had an assist, and he was very strong defensively, both on 5-on-5 and in penalty killing. He wasn't our best penalty killer, but he still was very good on the penalty kill. I'll give an honorable mention to Holloway. He really drove a line that involved, it was him, Brown, and I believe Perry. And he really drove the line. The other 2, unfortunately, weren't able to do much to complement him. So that line didn't work out. I don't hope to see it again. But Holloway did his very best. He was very scrappy, had a lot of hits, found himself in the penalty box, and had 3 shots on goal. So honorable mention to him. Let's look at goaltending really quick. First, Calgary's Daniel Vladar. He had a very good night, 32 of 35 he saved. Skinner did not have a very good night. In fact, according to Hockey Reference, it constitutes as a really bad start. He was 25 for 30, a save percentage of .833. I saw one Oilers fan of questionable intelligence suggest that it was Skinner's fault. Skinner certainly didn't help the Oilers. That's true. Skinner certainly could have and should play better. That's true. But Skinner wasn't the guy who turned it over and gave Calgary a prime opportunity 6 times. The Oilers did. The Oilers skaters did. Skinner didn't. Skinner didn't really have a lot of help on those goals against either. It would have been nice if he saved some like he did during the streak, but he didn't. So he still had a pretty bad game. But if you want to blame it all on him, you're delusional. So I also want to talk about, when you looking at all the goals, of the 9 goals that were scored between the 2 teams, only 2 of them were actual offensive plays. And that was Hyman's second goal and Janmark's goal. Those were the only 2 of the 9 that were scored. So from the Oilers' perspective, there is hope in that, in the fact that when it comes to purely offensive, even strength goals, because Hyman's first goal was also an offensive play, but that was on the power play. Of the 2 goals that you scored 2 goals out of offensive plays, and you never allowed Calgary to set up or have a good offensive play. The problem is that's not exactly how Calgary plays. Edmonton gave Calgary 6 good chances, and Calgary scored on those 6 good chances because that's how Calgary plays. They are a team whose offense is built off of takeaways. The Oilers passing, I'm sure somebody has a stat for this somewhere. I just don't have access to it. Is a team's passing percentage in the different zones. I'm sure the Oilers' passing percentage in the offensive zone was incredible, but I imagine that their passing success in the neutral zone or even their own zone was abysmal. That's just how Calgary works, and it didn't benefit them in the last 2 games, but it absolutely benefited them in this game. So the way I'd say it, and this goes for the other 3 games. I think Edmonton played a good game against Boston. They didn't play good enough. There was still lots of bad, and they played an incredible game against Minnesota and still lost. And they played a decent game against Calgary and still lost. So in the 3 games, at least, I don't think the Oilers played bad. They never played good enough to win. That's what matters at the end of the day. I can sit here and speculate all I want about could have, should have, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they lost. They are 0-2-1 in those last 3. But there's also the thought that they kind of look like the Oilers at this start of the year, where yes, they're playing better usually. They're just making mistakes and losing and not getting good goaltending. But it's kind of different in this way. At the beginning of the year, a lot of the mistakes were careless, whereas a lot of the mistakes in this game were forced by Calgary, because Calgary is very good at that. The other thing is the penalty kill was terrible under Woodcroft at the beginning of the year. The penalty kill is in fact back. They've only allowed 1 power play goal in the last 2 games, in which they've had 8 penalty kills in total. So they're 7 for 8. Granted, one of them was kind of easier to do because it was at the end of the game tonight, but still 7 for 8. And the other part is it still feels. The other part is goaltending. Skinner isn't doing nearly as good as he was during the streak, but he's not doing nearly as bad as he did before the streak. So there is that. So looking at these 3 losses, I'm not worried, but I am still concerned. The Oilers are playing .500 hockey since the streak. That should still get them into the playoffs. Maybe a wild card, but they should still get into the playoffs, which will be okay, assuming they play better than .500 hockey in the playoffs. So those are my thoughts on the game, the Oilers this week in these last 3 games. It was even with the loss, it was a fun game. Games against Calgary are always fun, win or lose. You can be angry and annoyed at a game and still have fun, and that was my case watching tonight. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you appreciated it, enjoyed it, or just like the white noise. That's fine too. Please leave your thoughts, whether they agree with me or disagree. That's fine, in the comment section below. I would also really appreciate if you subscribed and turn on notifications. That's all for now. Have a great rest of your day or night, whatever it is, and I will see you later.